Before I get into the video, I wanted to say thank you to all of you for your comments on my last video. I truly appreciate all of the support, and I appreciate all of you who reached out looking to help me out. I did end up finding someone to help me, so for the foreseeable future, my pal Bass will be the one providing the in-game footage for my videos. As you'll see from the clips, this dude is an incredible player, and I would really appreciate it if you would all give him a follow on his Twitch over at twitch.tv/Basim. I'll put a link in the description of this video, and you can find his link in the description of every video he provides footage for. I can also say that I personally vouch for his stream because I've spent a lot of time in there just hanging out, so if you're looking for a calm, relaxing stream with high tier gameplay, definitely check him out. Now, on to the video. The minigun has recently undergone some changes, so today I wanted to go over those changes while also comparing it to the current SMGs in the game. Now, if you read the patch notes on when the minigun was changed, you'll know that the minigun is supposed to have a cooldown of approximately 6 seconds. And I guess that's accurate, but only if your idea of approximately 6 means less than 5, because the minigun is able to fire 60 bullets before it overheats, which takes a little under 5 seconds. They also stated in the patch notes that the minigun's wind-up speed was reduced by 37%, and seeing as how the minigun used to have a wind-up speed of 1 second, that is pretty spot on. But moving on, let's break down the information on this weapon that hasn't been vaguely given in patch notes. The draw speed on the minigun is 55 hundredths of a second. Just for reference, most weapons in the game have a draw speed of 33 hundredths of a second, and that includes the SMG, which we will be comparing in this video later on. Now, after the draw speed of 55 hundredths of a second on the minigun, we know that it has a wind-up speed of 63 hundredths of a second, and is then able to fire 60 bullets in a little under 5 seconds. After the minigun fires its 60 bullets and has overheated, it then has a cooldown period of 2.9 seconds. Well, at least if you want the gun to fully cool down. If you simply continuously hold down the trigger on the minigun after it overheats, it will start charging up about 2 seconds into the cooldown and will begin to fire again after a cooldown of about 2.7 total seconds. It will then fire 53 bullets since the weapon was not fully cooled down, resulting in you firing 7 less bullets than normal, but of course you are able to do so faster. So the question is it worth it to sacrifice those 7 additional bullets and just keep holding down the trigger? Well, it depends on the situation. If you're in a squads game and your role in your squad is to simply put as much pressure as you can on the opponents, then yes, it's probably worth it for you to just keep holding down the trigger. But if you're in a life or death situation fighting someone, it's probably going to be a lot smarter to switch to another weapon and try to win that engagement. So now that you know how the minigun works, let's go ahead and start comparing it to the SMGs that are currently in the game. Usually when going over comparisons, I will show you the in-game stats of weapons to give you a good base, but the only thing that is actually reliable on the in-game stats for the minigun is its fire rate. But even the fire rate doesn't give you the information about the wind-up speed, which is why I gave you all of that information to begin with. Now that we know all of that, we can compare it to the stats of the SMGs, which are a little bit more reliable. So compared to something like the compact SMG, the minigun has a larger quote-unquote magazine of 60 compared to the compact's magazine of 40, and has a faster quote-unquote reload speed of less than 3 seconds, whereas the compact SMG takes a full 3 seconds to reload. Another benefit of the minigun in this comparison is that if you put the minigun away, it is basically reloading itself, as the cooldown continues even if you switch to another weapon. So by the time you switch back to the minigun, it will be able to fire again. And although you have to deal with the draw speed and wind up time of the minigun, it is still an advantage compared to something like an SMG, where you have to keep the weapon out the entire time you want to reload it, thus making it so that you are unable to use a weapon during that reload process. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the accuracy of the minigun compared to the SMGs. When hip firing and strafing as shown here, the Silence SMG is way more accurate the entire time. When it comes to comparing it to the compact SMG, the minigun actually starts off more accurate, but by the end it isn't even close, with the minigun being unbelievably inaccurate at 8 bullets, which is the point where the gun remains the same for the remainder of its continuous fire. When it comes to aiming down sights, the same story occurs with the Silence SMG being unbelievably more accurate than the minigun the entire time, and again the compact SMG starts out more inaccurate, but it is quickly surpassed by the minigun later in the magazine. What becomes interesting now that we know the accuracy of these weapons is that although the minigun may be less accurate than the SMGs, it does do more damage at longer ranges because the minigun actually has 0 damage drop off, whereas with the SMGs, as you can see here, they drop off very quickly. So although the minigun is less likely to hit its shots, it is firing more bullets per second and is doing more damage per bullet at longer ranges. So it's a tough call to say which is the better weapon in terms of doing damage directly to an opponent at long range, but one thing that I think is a given is which weapon is better at destroying opponents' builds, and that is the minigun. The main reason the minigun is so dominant in this category is because it actually does more damage to the environment, that being 33 damage per bullet, than it does to players. That means that it only takes 3 bullets to destroy a newly placed piece of wood, allowing it to destroy a massive 20 newly placed pieces of wood before it has its cooldown. Even up close, the compact SMG would only be able to destroy 8 newly placed pieces of wood before needing to reload, and that becomes even worse at longer ranges because, as we mentioned earlier, the compact SMG does have to deal with damage drop-off, whereas the minigun does not. So it's pretty clear which weapon is better at putting pressure on Bob the Builders, but the main question I wanted to answer when I decided to make this video was this: which weapon is the better weapon to combo with a shotgun? Meaning you take a shot with a shotgun and then you switch to either a minigun or an SMG. Before the update to the minigun, it felt like the windup speed was just too slow to even consider this question. But with a 37% faster windup speed, I think now it's worth addressing. So in order to answer this question, let's do a little bit of math. Let's say you just fired your shotgun and you are now switching to your minigun to finish someone off. You have the draw speed of 55 hundredths of a second plus the windup speed of 63 hundredths of a second, resulting in total time before being able to fire a single bullet being 1.18 seconds. Meanwhile, if you were to do the same thing with a compact SMG or silenced SMG, in which you fired your shotgun and then immediately switched to one of those weapons, you would only have to deal with a draw speed of 33 hundredths of a second before it is already able to fire. So if we subtract 33 hundredths of a second from a 1.18 seconds, we are left with 85 hundredths of a second, which is the time in which either the compact SMG or silenced SMG are able to fire, where the minigun would still be stuck trying to spin up. In that 85 hundredths of a second time period, the compact SMG would be able to fire 9 bullets and the silenced SMG would be able to fire 8 entire bullets. That's enough bullets for both of these weapons to do just under 200 damage, which is the maximum health of an opponent in Fortnite. So if you were in a situation where you were right next to an opponent and you were unable to build to block their shots, then the minigun could very well be the death of you, whereas either of the SMGs would have had a great chance of helping you win that engagement. But that doesn't mean the minigun is completely worthless up close. It just means that in order to use the minigun, you have to use it much more tactically. You need to shoot someone with a shotgun, get behind cover, start spinning up the minigun, and then push them as the minigun is firing. The minigun can also come in very handy when you weaken an opponent and they turtle themselves right in front of you, because then they've basically done all of the hard work for you of giving yourself a safe position to spin up your minigun and mow them down. Ultimately, both of these weapons can be good in up close situations, but if I had to choose a winner, I would have to go with an SMG. If you were to face an opponent exactly on your skill level and you had a minigun and they had an SMG, I would be willing to bet that 9 times out of 10 in a close engagement fight, the one with the SMG would win because of the ability to start firing the SMG almost instantly. The time it takes you to start spinning up your minigun is more than enough time for them to aggressively push you and finish you off. But as always, that is just my opinion. Let me know which weapon you guys personally prefer. You can't really go wrong with any of these 3 weapons currently in Fortnite, but hopefully the information provided in this video allows you to more smartly approach your engagements when you do use any of these weapons. If you're new here and like this type of content, feel free to subscribe, as this is what I like to do on this channel. If you'd like to support me when buying games or when spending V-Bucks, you can do so by using my code Flamm in either the Epic Games Store or in Fortnite's item shop. If you made it all the way to this point in the video, thank you so much. I truly do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in my next video.